Welcome to Living Vividly, the podcast where health, wellness, and curiosity collide. I'm Jackie, the founder of Vivid Health and Wellness, your guide on this journey to living your happiest and healthiest life.
My co-host Daphne, the unconventional dietitian, is always ready to shake things up and bring a fresh perspective to your wellness journey. And we can't forget Dustin, our producer, who keeps everything running smoothly behind the scenes. Together, we'll chat with health and wellness experts along with everyday people who have inspiring stories and practical insights to share. If you're ready to nourish your body, move better, and discover simple ways to thrive, you're in the right place. And hey, if you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to leave us a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
So last week, I had the great honor of attending the Health and Welfare Committee hearing. Senator McMath introduced this Bill 14, and that's what we're going to get into today.
Yeah, so this is very exciting for me. I mean, I guess for the state of Louisiana, it's very exciting. And I feel like we are potentially kind of catching up, or maybe not quite far behind the rest of the country, because I think in this bill cycle, there have been a lot of bills across the different states that are really addressing just the food in general. So there are a lot of bills being presented that are focused on food and the health of food and improving the quality. And I mean, we've been trying and thinking about this for decades, you know?
Right. It's like finally happening. It's really exciting. And Louisiana's not the last this time. Like we're
correct
in the beginning. We're in the first half of the states, I think.
Yeah. So I know Arizona has a bill that passed recently, and West Virginia also had a bill that is, they're both of them, I guess, are still in the process, but getting kind of towards the end of passing bills that are going to support improving the quality of our food in general. So let's talk a little bit about this bill. This is Senate Bill number 14 by Senator McMath. He is District 11, which covers the Covington, St. Tammany Parish area. And for this particular bill, this is a really lofty bill.
It is.
So let's back up a little bit. And I don't know, I haven't been involved in a lot of the processes on the state level, but whenever I was involved in the raw milk bill, probably 7 years ago or more, I got to see the process go through. And so the way that a bill process works is that either there's the Senate side and there's a House of Representatives side, and either a senator or a representative will present a bill. That bill gets assigned to a committee. And so each side, both the Senate and the House of Representatives sides, have similar committees. And so the bill goes to the committee on, in this case, it went to the committee on the Senate side. So it went to the Health and Welfare Committee. And at that committee, it gets voted on by the senators that sit on that committee. Right. Then it either passes or fails. If it passes, then it goes to the full Senate. And so everyone on the Senate side votes on the bill. And if it passes there, it will go to the House of Representatives similar committee. And so the House of Representatives is usually a bigger committee because the House is a bigger set of people. So it's bigger numbers on there. But once it presents to the committee, it either passes or fails, and then it goes to the full House of Representatives, passes or fails. And so assuming that it's passing every time, then it goes to the governor to get signed into law. So that's kind of the process of how this works. So it can be, this one was presented on the Senate side, it went to the Health and Welfare Committee and passed last week. Yep. And today, it's going to the full Senate to see how it's going to be, if it's going to pass or fail there. I think it passed. Did you say last week it passed? You were there.
I did.
What was it like whenever you were there?
It was really cool. It took hours. I mean, they had so many questions. First, Senator McMath introduced the bill and was kind of talking about all the ins and outs, and all the senators in the committee basically dissected. And this, like you said, it's a lofty bill. There's a lot to unpack. There's 5 different sections, and everyone had questions, and they wanted to, make amendments and understand everything before they made a decision. And then there's a time for testimonies and just for and against. People from the public can come and speak on why they don't agree with it or why they do. And I think it started at 9:30 and we were dismissed at a little after 1. So it was a long process.
Yeah. And so at that time is whenever you really kind of basically like brush it through the coals. You're really trying to find the holes in the bill, trying to see what's going to work, what might cause any fiscal challenges. I mean, it's really kind of dissected, like you said.
Right.
So, and it passed with full support, right?
It was 5-4-2 against.
Okay.
A very similar bill was introduced to the Education Committee a week or two prior, and that one passed the Education Committee unanimously. This Health and Welfare Committee, it passed 5-4-2 against, but it still passed.
So there were 2 senators against the bill.
Correct. Only for one section of the bill that they didn't like.
Which part of the bill were they not in support of?
The part that would make soda purchases ineligible for SNAP.
The other bill you were speaking of is the one by Blake Miguez.
Yes, Senator Blake Miguez. He is District 22, Lafayette, New Iberia. It's a very similar bill. Some of the ingredients that he wants prohibited are different. I haven't looked at them like line for line to see all the differences, but it is a very similar bill. And I think more than likely they're going to merge into one bill. I don't think they're going to be too different.
I agree. So let's kind of talk about Bill 14, and then we can compare it to Bill 117 from Miguez.
Okay.
So this Senate Bill 14 that was presented by Senator McMath has 5 parts. I'll read the 5 parts. They're very, very different and very big. I feel like each one of these almost could have been a bill in its own. So the part number 1, it's going to prohibit the serving of specific food colors and additives in the school food service.
So something that was discussed in the committee is originally the language was prohibiting ultra processed foods in public school lunches, but that word ultra processed food is really hard to define.
Too vague.
Right. So like they were like, define that for us. And it really is just foods containing these ingredients. So that's why they're focusing on these specific ingredients versus saying ultra processed foods.
Okay, so we'll come back to the ingredients because it's a pretty big long list.
Yes.
So part 1 is that they're not going to serve these specific ingredients in the school food service. And it was public schools and non-public schools that receive state funding.
Right.
Is kind of how it was listed. Part 2 of the bill is that it would provide continuing education specifically to physicians and physician's assistants that work in pediatrics, internal medicine, and family health, specifically towards nutrition. So continuing education about nutrition and metabolism.
Right.
And that would have to be renewed yearly, I believe.
Their continuing education credits that they take normally has to be focused on nutrition and metabolism. Am I saying that correctly? Like how your body metabolizes certain ingredients. Not like metabolism like burning fat, but...
Part 3 of this bill is that there would have to be a disclosure on manufactured products for specific ingredients. And part 4 is there would have to be a disclosure for any restaurant that uses seed oils. And then part 5 is specific to the Supportive Nutrition Assistance Program, which is SNAP program, which used to be known as the Food Stamp Program.
Right.
So let's break it down.
Let's do it. It's a lot.
It's a lot. It really is. So part 1, no public school governing authority shall serve an ultra-processed food to students in schools under its jurisdiction, and no non-public school that receives state funding shall serve ultra-processed foods to students. So what is defined in this particular bill as ultra-processed? And as you mentioned, that is a large body of foods. So, but what they specifically use here is blue dye number 1, blue dye number 2, green dye number 3, red dye 3, red dye 40, yellow dye 5 and 6, isodicarbonamide, butylated hydroxyanisole, butylated hydroxytoluene, potassium bromate, propylparaben, titanium dioxide. So those last handful clearly have no idea. They're not foods. They're not, anything food related. They're additives that somewhere along the way were added into food for a reason, from the food supply. There is a particular reason,
stability,
right?
Or
but
whatever.
It's not necessary for these foods.
Which is why we're here. Because we've seen, whenever they started adding these into our food system, which I'm sure we have a date on, health just started plummeting in our children. And I think that's what we're trying to combat here.
This has been a decades-long change in our food supply. So this didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen quickly. This has been a morphing of our food supply over many, many, many years. So the majority of the dyes that were presented here have been shown to have issues related to hyperactivity in children, so ADD, ADHD, allergic reactions in children, and not just children. I'm saying children because in the school system we're talking specifically about children, but allergic reactions in people, and some of them have been potentially cancerous.
Yeah, carcinogens.
Yeah, so. And I would have to imagine that when these are tested individually in very small amounts, they don't show any major issues. But what has happened, again, over the decades of change is that they have infiltrated so much of our food supply, and our intake of these ultra-processed foods over the decades has changed. So we're consuming much more processed foods.
Right.
It's much more available to us, and it is in the food service system and the school food system. We're getting a lot more, and
it's compounding.
It's compounding, and our body doesn't know how to process it to remove it out.
Whenever you think about food dyes, you think about candy and Fruit Loops and things that are colorful, but they put food dyes in bread to make the browning process look more brown. They put it in pickles to make it more vibrant lime green. It's just in food that there's really no reason why we're adding colors to these foods.
Right. So the biggest purpose from a food supply system, from the manufacturer system, is to make it look more vibrant and more inviting and more appealing. So there are some things like energy drinks. We know like a red energy drink obviously has food dye in it.
Which is annoying to me because these cans are not see-through. And nobody pours out their energy drinks. It's the craziest thing to me.
Right. So what's the one? I think it's a Monster drink, and it's like the same color as antifreeze, like neon green.
That's Monster, yeah.
The first time I saw it, I'm talking like probably 20 years ago. It startled me so much that I was like, oh my gosh, what is this?
Like it almost looks like you just poured out a glow stick.
Yes. I mean, it's alarming. It's It's also in things like medications.
Yeah.
Some over the counter, like
Advil.
Yeah, Advil, the I don't want to be naming a bunch of brands if I'm not 100% sure, but if you look at a capsule and it's colored, it's not natural. That is a food dye that is in there.
Right. Bright blue medication is not.
Right. Not typically bright blue.
Wait, the Advil pill is also flavored.
Yeah, it has a candy coating.
There's like a candy, which
make
is
it more
crazy,
palatable.
which is probably just as unhealthy as whatever color.
Yeah, the dyes are in such a variety of different products, even toothpaste and mouthwash and those kinds of things. So I think getting them out of the food supply, if they're not truly serving a purpose, is, it's going to be beneficial. If they're not there for a reason other than for the looks of it, then we probably don't need it. We'll get used to whatever it looks like.
Well, they don't have these food dyes in foods in Europe or Canada, or I think even Mexico. The same products are made by the same companies for other countries because they're against the law. And the only reason why they're here is because studies have shown that kids especially are drawn to more vibrant colors. And so they will buy the products more and spend money, and it's not against the law. And they cite that they are not toxic in small doses, but we're obviously eating a lot of it.
Correct.
We're eating more than that small dose that whatever study is.
Right. So the top 5 food manufacturers I have here, PepsiCo, which is Lay's, Doritos, Gatorade, Quaker, very, very large company. Mondelez International. So these are international companies that are serving similar foods here and in other countries. So in Europe, the United Kingdom, where in those other countries, those foods, the additives are not there. So, which kind of goes to show clearly that they have the ability to do it.
Correct.
It's not going to be a huge change in their food supply and the way that they produce. They have the ability to do it.
Yeah. So if they already have the supply lines they're creating, just cut off one and make more of the other. It's not going to be that big of a deal for them logistically.
Right. So Kraft is another one.
Logistically. will there be pushback by the companies creating these?
That remains to be seen. I mean, I would have to assume that, yes, there probably will be some pushback. I don't know what their purpose would be.
Yeah.
So
well, I
these
think financially.
Right, but they already have financially, I don't know. This is what we're going to have to find out.
Right.
This is what we'll see.
Or will they try to make a healthier food coloring?
That's what we hope.
So the food colors that are used in other countries come from natural foods.
Right.
So like red comes from beets often.
So it already exists. It's not like they have to discover
Correct.
something
Right.
new.
And the thing is, these food dyes that we are trying to prohibit are petroleum based.
Yeah.
They're not made from plants. They are made from petroleum.
And our body doesn't fully know how to process them. So in small doses, our body has a detoxification process that it can move things through, push things out, and really not be affected. But we're not talking about small doses anymore.
Right.
We're talking about small doses repeatedly over and over and over again.
The standard American diet.
Correct.
There are no small doses of anything.
Correct. Okay, so let's move on to part 2 of this bill. The board, which I'm assuming is going to be the medical board, shall require physicians and physician's assistants, which I hope that they'll put nurse practitioners in there also, practicing family medicine, internal medicine, pediatrics, and OBGYN to complete continuing education on nutrition and metabolic health. So what we know right now is that in medical school, I believe it's 1 hour of nutrition that they get through all of medical school.
I've
And
seen
so-
up to 3.
Up to 3. Okay. So in their medical school, nutrition is not a focus. And so it is not their fault that they don't understand nutrition. Nutrition is an entire science. So there are lots of other things that they need to know about as far as how the body works. And nutrition is not a focus for them, which it doesn't necessarily have to be because there is a whole profession dedicated to nutrition. But I think they do need to have the understanding of basic nutrition knowledge.
Especially if they're giving contradicting information. Like we want them to
Correct.
have all the information, and nutrition is the foundation of our health. And if they're in charge of our health, then they need to understand it fully.
Right. And have a working knowledge. I
Right.
think just a working knowledge to understand that nutrition does, or the lack of nutrition is really the underlying cause of many,
the main
most
driver.
disease processes. Part 3 of this bill is a food manufacturer shall label each product that manufacturers offers for sale with a warning label disclosing the use of any of the following ingredients. This is a very, very long list. So I'm not going to read all of them, but the warning would say something along the lines of, warning, this product contains an artificial color, chemical, or food additive that is banned in Australia, Canada, the European Union, or the United Kingdom.
So I feel like they already have this, but it's, yeah.
So they print these in other countries. Like every ultra processed food in other countries has a warning label like this. One of the very few against testimonies at the hearing was from the food labeling, the consumer safety food labeling organization. They were not against the bill per se, but they were talking about what a logistical nightmare this is going to be, creating state specific labels.
California has one, right? On like everything. I feel like on everything, it's like this product contains something that is known to cause cancer in the state of California.
Right. California does have, and its own products sold everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. It will be a logistical nightmare, but for
That's
sure.
fine.
But we did the same thing with tobacco and cigarettes. They added warning labels to that. Now, I guess the bigger question in my mind is if there's a warning label on there, how much of a deterrent does that actually make to someone who is a consumer purchasing it? That's what remains to be seen. I don't know. But I think the recognition that there are things that are in our foods that are outlawed in other, not just states or municipalities, outlawed in other nations. It has been proven
this is a
or
very
shown
long list
to be unsafe. And so if there certainly is a subset of the population who really doesn't care, like they don't care what they're eating. They want the things that's the most convenient, the easiest. But in my mind, this is an acknowledgement that yes, there are some things in our foods that are not great. And this is a baby step towards perhaps getting these things out of our food.
I was going to say, it's definitely a step closer. If nothing else, we're at least on the right track.
We're recognizing that they potentially do cause problems.
And I think this will help for people. I'm sorry for
No,
interrupting.
go.
I think this will help. So like for me, I'm allergic to tree nuts, which is almonds, whatever. on labels of food, it says warning or allergy warning, may contain tree nuts or may contain this, may contain this. And even if it's not may contain it, you don't have to read through every single ingredient to find out that there's pecans in what you're eating. This, for the health conscious, will be easier to see. Okay, there's that warning.
That's a no food for me. Yeah.
Right.
The argument with the consumer safety lady was that it was going to be state specific, but I feel like this is going to be a national thing. Like they're just going to make one label across the board and send it to all the products across the nation. But here's another thing for me. I don't know what the percentages of people that pay attention to this stuff, but I know for sure for years, I just ate stuff because I thought that the FDA and all the organizations that were in charge of our food were only putting out food that were safe for us. I don't think that we are getting like informed consent or giving informed consent to what we're eating if we have no idea that these things are in our food, bad for us. Like if you want to eat it and you see the label, that's okay.
Sure.
Like do whatever you want.
I am somewhat skeptical about how far this is going to go. There are many places that this bill can stop. The thing that excites me the most about it is that it's being recognized as potentially being problematic, and we're not just sticking our head in the sand anymore.
Right.
I think this is the beginning of a movement. So even if this bill gets killed somewhere along the way, which I would not at all be surprised if it does, but if it gets killed along the way, at least we have an awareness and a recognition that we've got some momentum going, and perhaps in next year's Louisiana Senate, we will see another similar bill and fine tune it a little bit.
Yeah. And I think even if it doesn't pass, there's no denying that we are becoming more aware. We're talking about it more, and we're not going to choose products like as a nation, like the numbers of people that are more more conscious about what they're putting in their body, that's going to affect the food industry.
Absolutely.
All of these manufacturers are going to have to start making safer products because we're going to demand it, whether or not it's the law.
Correct.
Supply and demand is the most powerful thing.
Correct. And the food companies are not going to go under. They're going to adjust.
Yeah.
And they already have in other countries, so they're going to have to adjust here too.
Right. I will say, you mentioned PepsiCo. They just, the day of the hearing, they announced that by the end of this year, I think they're going to remove food dyes from all of their products.
That's amazing.
I know. And that's going to put them ahead.
Yeah.
People are going to be drawn to their products. That's good PR.
That's
Yeah.
smart,
Like, why not just do the thing that we need for you to do?
Right.
Don't make us twist your arm.
Yeah. You've deceived us long enough.
Yes.
Now we're becoming aware of what's happening.
How long ago did we know about like Red 40? I feel like that was the first big one.
I mean, my brother is 30 and he was having allergic reactions to it then whenever he was a baby.
Yeah.
And so my parents knew not to give it to him.
I guess my only fear is that it's taken 30 years to get this far. Hopefully it doesn't take that long.
I think that there's enough momentum that's getting started.
The snowball's a little bigger now.
Right. So it took a long time to get that momentum, but now the wheel's rolling. And so I don't think that nationwide that this is going to all happen right away, even though a lot of people are really supporting this and trying to push it. I think there's going to be a little bit of pushback. It's going to take some time. But again, the recognition that we're acknowledging that these things that have been in our food supply for decades we're recognizing as being potentially harmful, I think is such a positive step in the right direction.
I can't imagine the pushback coming from anywhere other than the manufacturers.
Of course.
Like,
I mean,
no human would be like, oh yeah, I'll keep eating it even though, or like, I'd rather it be in there.
I've
it doesn't change.
surprisingly seen a lot of people dismiss the importance of this. And I
get that I don't care,
Yeah.
but I don't get any further than that. Like keep it in there. Like, who's going to be on that side?
Again, I think the food manufacturers have already, if the food manufacturers were having to start over with creating the new process of what it would look like without these additives, there would definitely be pushback there. That's not the case because they've already done it in other countries. They know how to do this.
Are you talking about like the same manufacturer here as opposed to like, oh yeah, that's what you mean. Yeah.
Now, like Kellogg's makes Fruit Loops for America and Fruit Loops for the rest of the world. I think another thing that I don't know if this is going to change anytime soon, but in America, whenever we start adding additives or chemicals to our food or our farming. I can't remember what it's called, but you have to basically prove that it's problematic before you take it out. Where in other countries, you have to prove that it's safe before you can put it in.
Yeah.
And that's why the snowball has grown so much here, is because we just keep adding. How many chemicals are added to our supply every year?
It's like 250.
It's a lot.
Additional chemicals are added. That's not just in the food supply, but that's, that we
environment.
Environment that we're in contact with. So that could be cleaning supplies. It could be, beauty supplies, food. So it's 250 plus chemicals per year added to the accepted
already
list.
Existing.
Correct.
Wild.
Well, here's kind of my answer to the FDA question. In the U.S., the burden of proof generally falls on the food industry to demonstrate the safety of new ingredients, especially those considered GRAS, generally recognized as safe. The FDA allows the food industry to determine if an ingredient is generally recognized as safe without requiring formal FDA approval. So then, like you're saying, they have to come back after it's in the system already.
Yeah, the FDA doesn't really do anything. Like, there was a hearing not long ago and they were questioning one of the heads of the FDA about baby formula, and there is no oversight into the ingredients that go
That's
in
crazy.
at all. So we're just feeding our people wild
Infants are little
babies.
baby tiny humans that are going to run the world in some day. We're feeding them things that we know nothing about.
And that's great, because that used to be like, oh, can't breastfeed, get formula. Like, that's just the thing. And
It's still like that. You have no other choice.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
One of the
It's been a while.
top ingredients in baby formula is actually oil. And
Still?
that's our
Oil.
next
Yeah.
section here.
Still?
Soybean oil is very common. Yeah. Part 4 of this bill is any food service establishment that cooks or prepares food using seed oil shall display a disclaimer on the menu or clearly visible location that informs the customer of the potential presence of seed oil.
Chick-fil-A is already doing this.
Okay.
Peanut oil.
Peanut oil. This is not that big of a deal. Just tell us what you're cooking with.
Right.
I want to know what the big deal with oils are. I'm so excited about talking. Like, you mentioned it one
Oh, my
episode
Lanta.
before.
Okay, so the oils that are being presented in this bill that need to be disclosed are canola oil, which is the same thing as rapeseed oil. We just don't call it that. Corn oil, cottonseed oil, flaxseed oil, which I find interesting that one's on there. Grapeseed oil, rice bran oil, safflower oil, soybean oil, and sunflower oil.
The flaxseed oil, I have seen like conflicting information about, because you can get that as a supplement, the flaxseed.
Right. So I do know that flaxseed is very fragile. The oils in there are very fragile, so they can turn
Heating,
rancid pretty
yes,
quickly.
if
So
you
you
heat
certainly
it
would not
up.
want to add that to anything that's heated.
Right.
But I find that one interesting that it's on this list. Some of these are genetically modified. So cottonseed oil or cottonseed, and which is bizarre to me. I've always found that absolutely bizarre that we're using cottonseed as an oil, but that's a different. Soybean oil is another one that is highly genetically modified. And so both of those so they're genetically modified. And then in a lot of these, the process of extracting oil, they use some things like hexane to extract the oil, which is I don't really know what hexane is.
It's a gas,
It's
like a
a
petroleum
chemical to extract the oil, to separate it.
They're super high in omega-6, which is inflammatory.
Right.
They cause oxidative stress in our body. You have to have a certain ratio of omega-3 to omega-6. Like, so my husband has a spoonful of flaxseed every day, and it does say however much omega-3, however much omega-6, but you want that ratio.
Yeah.
The more omega-3 than omega-6. I don't think omega-6 alone is bad.
No. So we have omega-3, omega-6, and omega-9. All three of them are
269. I'm sorry.
Damn, she's
all
fine.
three of them are found in different proportions in different types of different seeds or different oils. The biggest issue with the omega-3s are what we have the least of because they're primarily in seafood, and we just don't have, even in South Louisiana, we don't eat the seafood that has the omega-3 oils in it in the quantity that we should to be able to create a balance. We do not.
Okay.
Like we don't eat enough food intake, so we have to supplement.
So omega-6 is not inherently bad, but whenever the ratio of omega-6 is significantly higher than the omega-3s, it causes an inflammatory process. So creating the oxidative stress within the body. And so because we don't have enough omega-3s and we have a lot of omega-6s, it creates that disproportion ratio. So part of the reason why these are not good is because of the omega-6. And again, it's part of the volume. So if you have a little bit of soybean oil, not going to kill you, it's not going to really create a lot of inflammation, but because it is so infiltrated in our system and our food supply, really don't stand a chance to get the omega-3 to omega-6 balance that is really needed to keep that inflammatory process contained.
And I'm also not very well educated in this, but I do remember reading something about heating up the oil makes it significantly more dangerous.
Well, really, a lot of it is frying. So in a restaurant, it's going to be used mostly for frying. So a lot of these oils are also used in processed foods like making muffins or crackers or granola bars. So these oils can be used in those, but in a restaurant situation, most of it is going to be frying. And so there are two components. Part of it is that the temperature that you have to get to be able to fry with these is a very high temperature. And the second part of it is that the repetitive use of these oils that are used. I mean, if you go into any like major restaurant on a Saturday night, the oil that they've been frying in from 11 o'clock in the morning is the same oil that they're still frying in at 9 o'clock at night.
It's horrendous.
And so the oil in itself can be heated to a high temperature. That causes a bit of breakdown. But whenever it's at that temperature for such a long time and being used over and over and over and over again, that creates a whole nother level of problem. Mm-hmm. So recently there's been a couple of local restaurants who have switched to using beef tallow as their oil. And so Market Eats is the one that I know for sure that has made the switch and made an announcement, and it was like a big PR thing for them. And that I think is going to be the direction that we'll be moving towards. Beef tallow and actually lard would be another one that can be used. So it's going to be, I think, quite a change to shift over into those, but, and we'll see what the stumbling blocks are. But that's going to be the shift that we'll move to.
There was such a campaign in, I want to say like the 50s, whenever like vegetable shortening started coming out and vilifying animal fats and use this vegetable shortening. It's made out of vegetables. It's safe. It's better for you. And it's going to be hard to unlearn and unteach everyone that.
Yeah.
Like it's this visceral reaction like, oh, animal fat's so bad for us.
Right.
It's really the best thing.
So a couple of things. Whenever I was in dietetic school, which was in the late 90s, I was very confused. And I think I've mentioned this on a podcast before, very confused as to why we are pushing vegetables. Obviously, vegetables are good. We need more vegetables, the color, all the great things. We're pushing vegetables because they're low fat, yet we're encouraging, and this was part of the dietetics training, encouraging the use of vegetable oil because it is the better oil to use. So how, in my mind, for a long time, I had conflict as to, okay, if vegetables are low in fat, then how do they have enough fat for us to make oil out of them? And so it took until I started following the Weston A. Price Foundation, which we can kind of go off on a tangent about the Weston Price Foundation, but I watched basically just a presentation by Sally Fallon, who is the leader of the Weston Price Foundation. And she was talking specifically about fat and the villainization of fats and the change in the way that we've presented fat since like the 1940s into current times. And at that time, when I watched that presentation, and this is old, I mean, she was using a projector and she had slides that she was physically, changing out in the presentation. And what do you call that thing? An overhead projector.
Yes.
Oh, the good old days.
Yeah. So at that time is whenever I started realizing what had happened. So the name of that, if you want to go look it up, it's fascinating. It's called The Oiling of America, and you can find it on YouTube. It's just a not incredibly intriguing, but fascinating presentation. And so that's whenever I started realizing the difference and kind of what was going on with the vegetable oils. And so the Weston Price Foundation is a nutrition-based foundation based on the study of Weston Price, who was a dentist in the 1920s or 30s. And he started studying nutrition because his population, his patients, were starting to develop dental cavities. And so he went on a journey and studied 7 different countries. And at the time, I mean, obviously we're talking about the 20s and 30s, he was looking at countries who had not been influenced greatly by processed foods. Obviously, processed foods then is very different from processed foods now. But in his journeys, he found specific things that there wasn't a particular diet that was best, but that the infiltration of the processing of foods into cultures is what was causing changes in not just the quality of the teeth, but even bone structure of the face. So the Weston Price Foundation has been, it was one of the pivotal moments for me as a dietitian to recognize that nutrition is not necessarily what I was taught, so I'm understanding nutrition on a whole different level after learning more about the Weston Price Foundation. And so it's a whole, now we talk about pendulum swings sometimes, that I think their pendulum has swung to where some of the things that they're promoting can be a little bit not realistic for the average person.
Right.
As far as, we can't all grow our own food and raise our own animals, but it's fascinating nutrition-based, like real nutrition-based information that's come out of that foundation. They're a wonderful foundation.
You mentioned the jaw, like the bone structure, and that's a different conversation, but that fascinates me so much because our food has become softer as the centuries have gone by. So we haven't had to chew as much. And if you look at the jaws of like native people and even some tribes that still exist now, they don't have crooked teeth.
Correct.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like the sleep apnea and all the crooked teeth is truly a symptom of our food. There is also something that people need to be aware of is there is now a beef tallow product that the food industry has created that is highly processed. A lot of those companies have announced recently that they're using beef tallow, and then like whistleblowers will find a picture of the beef tallow that they're using, and it is either cut with oils or has other ingredients. It's not just
it's like we're using
beef
it,
tallow.
but also
it's like a beef tallow product, like a cheese food product.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
it's beef tallow-esque.
Yeah, it's essence of beef tallow.
Right. So that is something that I think is really going to have to be,
Heavily
watched.
scrutinized.
Pay attention to the food industry because they're in it to make money.
Correct.
And so they're going to do what they have to do to be able to make money. So
Popeyes uses beef tallow for all of its fried products, including chicken fries and other sides. Steak and Shake switched to 100% beef tallow. Outback has been using beef tallow for its fried foods, including its bloomin' onion, for many years. Buffalo Wild Wings uses beef shortening, which is made from beef fat. Smash Burger are cooked in a blend of beef tallow and canola oil. Portillo's, a blend of beef tallow and vegetable oil, which vegetable oil, as we learned, is a blend of a lot of other oils.
correct.
I feel like vegetable oil, they're like, oh, give us the leftover oils and we'll put it in one.
Yeah, that's kind of what happens.
Is oil just bad? Is there good oils?
So we could talk about olive oil. There's an infiltration of olive oil that is not pure olive oil also, where it gets cut by a lot of different other types of oils. And even olive oil connoisseurs have difficulty being able to tell the difference.
Right. There's like a whole oil mafia going on.
Right.
Oh, that's crazy, because olive oil connoisseurs are like wine connoisseurs. Like, this is good olive oil.
Yeah.
Right.
And
That's
also
crazy.
the way that they process it, like cold press versus hot pressed. I don't even know all the details.
Yeah. So olive oil is going to be probably your best oil. Olive oil, avocado oil is pretty high up there. Those are going to be your better oils, but they're expensive. And also they have a much lower smoke point. So you can't really fry something in really good pure olive oil. It would cost a fortune, but you really just can't do it because you can't get the oil to a high enough point to be able to fry something. So your question about, is oil inherently bad? So oil by definition is fat.
Right.
So the amount of fat that is consumed is really kind of the sticking point of how bad it is. So fat isn't inherently bad, but the quality, so I'll always go to quality and quantity. The quality of the fat, if it's coming from olive oil, or if it's coming from an avocado that you slice up, or if it's coming from even some nuts, have decent fats in them, but that's a whole nother conversation we could have about the fats in in nuts. But so fat isn't inherently bad, but the quality and the quantity is really what determines what is the phrase, something about the poison.
Oh.
Just because you said something about the poison.
Hold on.
Okay, we don't have to say that.
All I can think of is the proof. Proof is in the pudding.
That is not it.
So the more fat, so like avocados are fat, basically.
It's good
Correct.
fat.
Right. So, but that would make sense that the oil of it is good oil.
Correct.
The things that aren't more fat than something else,
And does this also...
would those be the worst? Like corn oil, corn is nothing, so they're just squeezing the gunk out of it to get oil.
Correct.
So that would be worse oil.
Gunk oil.
So the quality of the oil is not ideal. And again, if you have a little bit of corn oil, it's not really problematic, but it is so much a part of our food supply that it has become a problem because of the quality, because of the quantity of oil, corn, canola, soybean, because of the quantity of it that we consume, because it is in so many different food products.
Is there anything that's a high smoke point that's good?
Tallow.
So
Tallow, but also avocado oil has a pretty high smoke point. It's like 450.
Okay.
But it's expensive.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going
to get that much.
To get that much to put in a fryer, it's expensive to be able to fry in avocado oil. And so and again, if you're going to have to, ideally, you know, there are regulations for restaurants and how frequently they have to change out their oil, but it just would make a very, very expensive product. And it would be unfeasible for a restaurant to use avocado oil.
Peanut oil is not on this list.
Correct, which is surprising to me.
It is. I just didn't realize that.
Because of the allergens. And maybe it just maybe, I don't know the answer. I don't know why peanut oil didn't make this list.
I'm gonna look
but
it up.
potentially because it's a high allergen food, it may already have to be disclosed because it's an allergens.
Peanut oil is generally considered a healthy oil, offering potential benefits like supporting heart health, reducing blood sugar levels. However, it's also high in omega-6.
So are all oils high in omega-6?
Most oils are high in omega-6. So again, our bodies are not intended to eat oil at the level of oil that we consume.
Before we get onto the last section of this, we mentioned oxidative stress, and I don't think a lot of people understand what that means. Like, these oils are causing chronic inflammation in our bodies. Why is that a problem that we need to get ahead of?
Okay, so if we're talking about oxidative stress, I'm going to try and explain this in a way that makes sense. Oxidative stress is the imbalance of free radicals. Okay, so a free radical is an electron that is out there spinning out without anything to balance it. And so it's creating an imbalance. So we've got free radicals on one side that are just spinning out, and then you have antioxidants on the other side that are going to balance that free radical spin.
Are we talking about in our body right now?
In your body,
Okay.
yes. So the oils that we're talking about have been shown to increase oxidative stress, which is the imbalance of free radicals and antioxidants. So that's kind of the best way to describe it. So if we were to consume oils at this level, we are not consuming, just as a population, we don't consume enough antioxidant-based foods to balance the free radicals. So where that becomes problematic is that free radicals that are spinning out create imbalance that leads to, I think of it, I'm sure it's much more complicated than this, but either the path of a free radical that can turn into a cancerous cell, and then we all have cancer cells in our body. Depending on how much balance you have to be able to attack that cancerous cell, or how your immune system is supported to be able to attack and kill that cancerous cell, will depend on if it proliferates and continues to grow, or if it gets killed. So it's either going to go down the path of cancerous cells, or it's going to go down a path of just inflammation in general. And again, most of our bodies have inflammation in them, and your body will hold inflammation in, this is how I think of it, it holds it in the weakest link, the weakest part of your body. So if you stub your toe and your toe becomes inflamed, that is an inflammation that is supposed to be there. It's acute. Your body activates the immune system. It goes to the toe. It, may take a few days, maybe a week or 10 days, and then it will heal that toe and the inflammation goes away. It's a different type of inflammation. So what we're talking about here, specifically related to the food supply, is what is low, slow, chronic inflammation. So chronic meaning it's not a quickly activated thing that gets suppressed by the immune system and goes away. It's just underlying low-level inflammation that's always there
throughout your whole body,
throughout your body, or it could go into specific parts of your body.
Okay.
So I think of it as the weakest link, where your immune system is going to fall into or surrender to the weakest link. So it could be anything from inflammation could look like joint pain, so osteoarthritis. It could look like autoimmune disease, which there are probably about 50 different diseases that fall under autoimmune disease. The ones that we've talked about, I talk about Hashimoto's a lot because I have Hashimoto's and it's an autoimmune disease. We've talked about celiac because your daughter has celiac disease, but Sjogren's is Sjogren's syndrome is an autoimmune disease. Type 1 diabetes is autoimmune. I mean, some people will define cancer as being an autoimmune disease because it's a similar process. But so autoimmune disease, joint pain, headaches, heart disease comes from that just kind of low level chronic inflammation. So that chronic inflammation that doesn't go away, that is fueled by our food intake, is a primary part of nearly every disease process to some extent. I mean, it can all be linked back to some to the food system in some way. So whether it's nutrient deficiency, where you're lacking a nutrient or a subset of nutrients, or if it's the imbalance of your omegas chronically for a long time. So all of our inflammation and disease processes, for the most part, and I'm sure I'm saying all, you should never say all because there's that like outlier, but the majority of them are linked to our food intake and the way that we fuel our body. You're much more likely to develop a disease process that is related to chronic inflammation if you continue to consume things that are inflammatory.
Right.
So, the dyes, the additives that are not necessary to beautify a product or to change the texture of a product, to enhance it.
Like
those
artificial
types of
sweeteners.
Things, right. Those things are not necessary. Our body is intended to decrease inflammation. Your body has systems, your immune system has ways to tamp down inflammation, and it can do that really, really well. But if we're constantly presenting to it chemicals, lack of the tools that it needs to support the immune system, and if we're constantly berating the immune system, then it is going to fail at some point.
I eat a pint of blueberries every day.
Do you really? Oh, wow.
Because I think pound for pound, they're some of the most nutrient dense foods, and they are so high in antioxidants. It's like I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going to eat it every day and hope for the best. It's kind of my little like anti-cancer protection. So we'll see.
Antioxidants
fight the free radicals that cause oxidative stress and inflammation in your body.
Omega-6.
That's the free radical that
helps. That feeds free radicals.
It creates free radicals, yes.
So it doesn't make them stronger.
Omega-3 has the antioxidant.
Right. So omega-3s are going to balance omega-6. If we don't have enough omega-3s and we have a lot of omega-6, there's not enough balance there.
So omega-3s are antioxidants, or they?
Correct.
Okay.
They contain antioxidant properties.
It's not just that. It's all the other ingredients that we've talked about, the food dyes, all the additives, artificial sweeteners. They're not just causing inflammation in our body. They are also, we're dealing with heart disease. We're dealing with gut issues. We're dealing with obesity and diabetes. Like, these things aren't just causing one little problem. It's a huge, and that was actually one of the comments that I saw recently when we were asking for questions. It was like, okay, well, it's fine that causes ADD, but what about the heart disease? What about all these other things? And this is a trickling effect. It's going to cascade to all those other problems.
So the flip side of this, so we're talking about processed foods and what's good and what's not good, but I think where we've kind of gone wrong as a society food wise is that we're trying to make our processed foods better, which I think is beneficial, but there's no one that's advocating for the increase of consumption of natural foods that have what we already need.
Right.
So no one is pushing for us to increase the variety of greens that we eat. So not just broccoli, but cabbage and Swiss chard and kale and spinach and all of this variety of greens that have the nutritional value that are going to also help support the immune system. No one is pushing for us to have walnuts because they contain omega-3s. Like that's, I think, the side that's missing. So yes, we can improve our processed food system, and we can, look at the food industry and food manufacturers to make our food better. Absolutely. I think that they need to be held to a much higher standard, but we also need to recognize that foods that are not being presented by these food manufacturers are the best foods that we can have. Just food. So our natural sweet potatoes, and again, kind of going back to, we talk about the colors of foods naturally. So not food dyes, obviously, but the components that make a peach orangey, and the components that make a red bell pepper red, and the components that make broccoli green, those are really the magic. That's the beauty of what we're missing.
Right.
So while we can argue and push for our food industry to do better, we also as a population have to do better with consuming foods that are in their most natural form, that are not being pushed to us by a food supply.
Yeah, we've become really dependent on boxes and bags to feed us, when really just the vegetables and the meat, it's the most basic food. And that's what food was supposed to be.
There needs to be a drive-through where you could just order vegetables.
I would be there.
So actually, where I grew up in Denham Springs, and it wasn't exactly that, but they had a drive-through where it was you could order groceries. So it was small,
but
cool. You would order your groceries, and you'd drive through and say, I want, and they would pack it all up for you and give it to you, and you'd drive off with it. It's no longer around.
That.
So maybe that's a concept that could be brought back.
I feel like it was tried to, because there was a drive-through store where you could go in and be like, I need that, I need that, I need that. Is that kind of what you're talking about? Yeah. That's crazy.
Have y'all heard of Misfit Foods?
Yeah.
I'm really intrigued by that. They send you misshapen produce, the stuff that they can't really sell in the grocery stores.
Yeah, we've gotten Misfits foods before. Really? We had a subscription. It's a subscription package or a subscription box that you get once a month, and we had it for a little while. And because they're sending you things that are Misfits, I don't care what foods look like, but there were some things that were sent, and I can't tell you anything right off the top of my head because I don't remember, that I was like, I don't even know what to do with this. And so
they give you I thought they also gave you a...
Oh, it's not like the meal packages.
So it's not just we'll send you
groceries.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just like a box of misshapen vegetables and
that
fruits.
They literally just scraped off.
It's probably changed. I mean, it's probably for us, it was, I'll say maybe 4 or 5 years ago that we got the subscription box, and I'm sure it's changed and morphed, and it's a much different thing now than it was then. But we did it for a while, and we got a few things, and we got things that I was like, oh great, we can, this carrot has, 2 legs, and that's fine. We can use that. No big deal. But there were some things that I was like, I'm not real sure what to do with this. And so it had a few challenges that we had along the way, but it's definitely worth trialing it.
That's cool.
Yeah. Let's talk about part 5 of this bill. So we said it has 5 parts. We're still talking about McMath's bill that's being heard today in the Senate. So part 5 prohibits the purchase of soft drinks, and you said even candy, from the SNAP benefits program.
So the candy wasn't mentioned in the bill, but Governor Landry just signed an executive order 2 days ago that included candy.
Okay, so what this means is that the SNAP program, which is a supplemental nutrition assistance program, is no longer going to allow someone in that program that is using state-funded money to purchase soft drinks and candy.
So when you say don't allow, I don't know how SNAP works, but when you say don't allow, will it literally not be able to ring up for that?
Correct. So the way that the SNAP program works... Right. It's not on the store. The way that the program works is that you get a card, like a debit card, or I'll say like a gift card, and money gets added to that card monthly. And so you have your card, and whenever you go to the grocery store, you buy whatever you want. And the things that are allowed in the SNAP program will deduct from that card. Everything else you would have to pay with your regular.
Well, that's pretty simple then.
Yeah.
So you don't really have to know necessarily.
Yeah, and on the price tags of most of these foods, it'll say EBT eligible or maybe SNAP eligible. I don't know what the difference is.
Oftentimes is indicated what's eligible and what's not. But also when you're enrolled in the program, it's very, very clearly defined what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Okay.
So I will mention that I'm on the board for the farmers market, the Lafayette Farmers and Artisans Market, and they have the Grow the Good program. And in that program, it's part of the SNAP benefits. In that program, you can bring your SNAP card to the main tent, and the amount of money that you deduct from your SNAP benefits, the Grow the Good program will double the dollars.
Wow.
So if you go there and say, I want to spend $40, then you're going to get $80 worth of, essentially it's like Monopoly money that we give you $80 and you can go and
so it's farmers market money.
Farmers market money that you can go to specific vendors. So it's vendors that are selling grocery type items. So not ready to eat foods, but grocery items. You can go to those vendors and you can spend your money just like you would at the grocery store. And so that program allows you to double your dollars from the SNAP program.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
More people need to know about that.
It's an amazing, amazing program. And it's growing. We started last year, I want to say around February or March of last year. So it's been about a year and it's growing every month. We're using more SNAP dollar monies.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I love that. It's helping support the local farmers and also giving good nutrition to the people on the SNAP program.
And it's not just Lafayette. I know they do it at the Red Stick Market in Baton Rouge. I'm sure across the state, there are farmers markets that are in this program. It's not just Lafayette program.
We're making such strides. So this part 5 of this bill is definitely the most controversial, I think, and it was the one that got the most pushback during the hearing, removing sodas specifically from this SNAP program. There's already foods that are prohibited.
Correct.
I mean, you can't buy cigarettes. You can't buy certain things with it. So it's not unheard of to disqualify certain food products.
Right.
Soda specifically, there's no nutritional value.
Correct.
To soda. It's sugar or fake sugar.
Right. Artificially sweetened.
So it's really not doing anything positive for our bodies, right?
Correct.
Okay.
You say that this one was a little bit harder.
Yeah.
It was the one that had the biggest pushback. What was the pushback? Who was pushing back and what were they pushing back on?
The 2 senators that were pushing back were worried that this is like taking away the freedoms and the rights of the people that have this that are on this program, not being able to choose the foods that they buy and consume. The SNAP program, the whole point of it is to provide nutritional assistance to the most vulnerable population. That's the people with the low income that don't have enough money to buy the groceries that their family needs to survive.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. Nutrition is in the name.
Right. And that was actually a side note. Someone was trying to say that
someone from Coca-Cola,
that this was not about nutrition, but it's literally in the name. So Coca-Cola specifically has lobbied bajillions of dollars on this like PR campaign to vilify this kind of thing, where if you take away soda from somebody, you are taking away their right to choose what they are consuming. And as a child who grew up on food stamps, like that is how my family ate whenever I was young. We are supposed to be protecting those people. And if we are paying, like our tax money pays for this. And if we are giving them money and they're spending it on zero nutrition, empty calories, that is not setting them up for success for the rest of their life.
Absolutely.
Whether it's as a kid in school or as an adult who has to be emotionally regulated and live a life and pay their bills, like that is not where their money needs to be spent.
Well, and to be clear, this does not prohibit them from being able to purchase it.
Right.
It just prohibits them it prohibits the state funds to purchase it for them.
It does not get subtracted when you check
right.
out.
So if they want to buy sodas and they want to buy candy, by all means, they have the right, just like every other American does, to be able to purchase it.
Right.
It's just not going to be paid for by our state tax dollars.
And those same
That's all
tax
it is.
dollars are going to have to pay for the health problems that arise as a result of consuming that. There was a large percentage of Coca-Cola's revenue that comes from these food subsidy programs.
Absolutely.
I think it's most of their revenue comes from the government. And that is why they are so adamantly lobbying against this.
Right. Again, the bill passed the committee, the Senate committee. And so we'll see what happens in the Senate. And this particular bill, like we said, has so many factors. It really could be 5 separate bills. So my concern, I guess, is one, I want it to pass through, but I hope that it doesn't get so changed from the original wording of the bill, and that any changes that happen, optimistically, I'm thinking any changes that happen are going to be beneficial and they're going to support the better good of the people. So I think a lot remains to be seen as to how this is going to play out, as far as not just getting through the government process, but the actual implementation, the timing of the implementation. Right. So there's a lot remaining. There's a lot to be seen on how this plays out, but I'm hopeful that this is creating the type of change that we need to see. And whether it happens at the end of this calendar year, which is not likely, or if it happens, at the end of 2026 or 27, we're coming upon a place and a time where nutrition is being seen as a much bigger part of the way that our body functions and our medical community. And that makes me very hopeful.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I mean, what we consume, what we eat affects every single part of our lives, not just the energy of our physical bodies, but how our brains work, how we focus in school, how we behave. I think even in like prisons, they have studies where whenever they feed them healthier foods, the behavior and like the violence reduces.
Absolutely.
And like as a nation, we could really use some nutrition, and it's going to make us all so much healthier.
Right.
Across the board if we can rein this in.
Yeah. I think we're way, way overdue, but it's never too late. We have to start somewhere. And so wherever this bill leads and whatever we start with is a step in the right direction.
Thanks for listening to Living Vividly. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review and subscribe. We'd love to hear from you. For more resources and details from today's discussion, check out the show notes. Until next time, keep living vividly.